Hey, listener. You ever get that feeling, like reading the news is like flipping through a history book? Today's headlines could be straight out to the ancient world, especially when we're talking about Iran and Israel. Buckle up, because we're about to unpack centuries of power struggles, surprising alliances, and maybe even a few prophecies that seem eerily relevant today. Ready to dive in?
It's a journey that takes us back to the very beginning, before Persia, before the Israelites even.
We're talking like way back to Genesis, right? Elam.
Exactly, Elam. Now, this was a powerhouse. I mean, a serious cultural and strategic force. And they weren't tucked away in a corner either. They were right on the edge of Mesopotamia, a major player. And here's the thing. They were already established, thriving even, long before figures like, Abraham, Isaac, those guys came on the scene.
So not exactly the new kids on the block.
Not at all. They had a huge part in shaping the world. The Israelites would eventually, inherit. It's not always a direct connection, but you can feel their presence in the biblical narrative.
Right. It's like they pop up as rivals one minute, then they're part of some massive empire that's leaving its mark on Israel's story the next. It's like a puzzle, but the pieces are scattered over, like, centuries.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of shifts in power, things get even more interesting with the rise of the Medes. We're talking about the ancestors of the Persians here.
Oh, yeah. And this is where a guy named Deioces enters the picture. He's like almost mythical in a way. He unites all these Median tribes that were scattered, essentially creating like the foundation of Iranian identity, at least how we understand it.
It wasn't just about shared ancestry, though. I mean, uniting them was huge. But Deioces, he established a really strong central government. Strategic move allowed them to expand their influence. But of course, they weren't the only ones vying for power, were they? Don't forget about the Assyrians.
Oh man, the Assyrians. If we're talking about bad guys in ancient history, they're practically poster children. Brutal, ruthless, and the Bible does not sugarcoat it.
Infamous is putting it mildly. We're talking brutal punishments, mass deportations. They didn't want to just conquer. They wanted to erase entire cultures, starting with their identity. And the Israelites, they knew this firsthand.
It's chilling to think about. And here's Israel right in the middle of this ancient tug of war, stuck between empires making their moves.
A period of intense upheaval. But even empires crumble eventually.
And that leads us to the fall of the mighty Assyrians. It's the Medes, along with the Babylonians this time, that team up to bring down Nineveh, the Assyrian capital. Talk about a turning point.
It's huge, like literally world-changing. So big that even the prophet Isaiah saw it coming. He prophesied it in the book of Isaiah, this fall of Nineveh. It clears the path for a new empire to step in and will take control. This is where the Babylonians take center stage. But with this new empire, it comes at a cost, a steep one, especially for the Israelites.
Because this is where we see the destruction of Jerusalem and the start of the Babylonian exile. Just a truly heartbreaking chapter for the Jewish people.
It was a dark time. For the Israelites, I mean. The Babylonian exile.
Talk about hitting rock bottom.
Really, King Nebuchadnezzar. And he was known for, his ambition. Ruthless, too. He had Jerusalem destroyed. And the people, they were taken captive. Just immense suffering.
Loss. Yeah. But even in the midst of all that, something else starts to, to emerge. Like a glimmer of hope, right? Almost like a new leader on the horizon, someone who's going to change everything.
Enter Cyrus the Great.
Cyrus the Great, leader of the Persian Empire.
This is where the Medes, remember they'd been quietly building their power? Well, now they're ready to take center stage.
Cyrus, he was different. He wasn't just about, brute force, conquering everything in sight. I mean, he was a king, sure, but he was also a visionary, a real strategist.
The way he conquered Babylon.
I was practically unheard of.
Practically peaceful.
It really was.
Cyrus, he wasn't just about conquest, though. He was a liberator. He recognized what the Israelites were going through. And I mean, this is unprecedented. He allowed them to return to Jerusalem, let them rebuild their temple.
Can you imagine a foreign king? Not even an Israelite, and he's the one who lets them go back to their homeland, rebuild their most sacred site. That's huge. It's a total turning point. Shows you what kind of leader Cyrus was.
There's more to it, though. This is where it gets really interesting, at least from a scriptural perspective. See, the book of Isaiah, it was written centuries before Cyrus was even born, and it calls him, get this, God's anointed one.
Wow. Okay, now that is a big deal.
Huge.
Because God's anointed one, the Messiah, we usually think of that as, a leader from Israel. But Cyrus, he's a Persian king.
And yet he's given this title.
It's like God's working behind the scenes, but not in a way anyone would expect.
Exactly. His plan It doesn't always follow the patterns we might assume.
So we've got the Persian Empire now, right? It's this whole new backdrop. The Jews are back in Jerusalem rebuilding, but
Yeah.
they're also like navigating life under Persian rule,
Hmm.
which is, well, I'm sure it had its moments.
Oh, definitely. And that's where we get the story of Esther.
Esther, the Book of Esther, like a window into the inner workings of the Persian court, all that intrigue, political maneuvering.
It's a story of bravery, resilience. You've got this young Jewish woman who becomes queen.
Against
It's all
them.
odds. And in the end, she's the one who protects her people. It reminds us that even these huge, powerful empires, there are these individual stories, stories that can get lost, but they have this profound impact.
And it's not just the story itself, it's like a testament to God's plan, his providence. He can use anyone, even a queen in a foreign land, to protect his people.
The Persian Empire, it's not just a chapter in the story, it's a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Connects to the future in a way. And all these events, these connections between Iran and Israel, they still echo, even today.
It's true. You think about the book of Ezekiel, right? It talks about this future battle, this coalition of nations. And Persia, they're right there in the thick of it.
Persia, right there in the text. It really makes you think, especially when we look at, well, the world today. I mean, Israel, Iran, tensions are definitely not new. Some scholars even suggest this prophecy in Ezekiel, it might be connected to events that, well, haven't happened yet.
It's wild, right? Like looking through a cracked mirror almost. Same players on the world stage, but everything's kind of, I don't know, distorted by time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the stakes, they're definitely different. It's a good reminder, though, that history, it's not just, old stories. It's the foundation for everything that's happening now. If we can understand these ancient echoes, maybe we can get a handle on, well, the stuff we're dealing with today.
No doubt. It's a lot to process. And it's not just Ezekiel either. The book of Daniel, those visions of empires rising and falling, that seems pretty relevant even now, don't you think?
The book of Daniel, make a panoramic view. It's not just about empires coming and going. It points to something bigger. Like there's this power that transcends all the earthly stuff, all the conflict.
Makes you wonder, where do we fit in all this grand narrative? What's our part in all this? Especially as we're like trying to make sense of the past and present all at once.
That's the question, isn't it? And here's the thing. We're not just watching history unfold. We're part of it. We're writing it, even if we don't realize it. Maybe, just maybe, if we can learn from, what's come before, the good and the bad, maybe then we can find a better way forward.
So, listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, what sticks with you? What new insights did you gain about this whole tangled history between Iran and Israel? What's resonating?
It's quite a story, isn't it? Alliances, betrayals, all these twists and turns. But it's not just a story. It's a reminder that the past, it never really stays in the past, It shapes our world in ways we probably don't even recognize.
It's been a journey, that's for sure. But hey, like they say, it's about the journey, right? And who knows, maybe this is just the beginning. There's always more to uncover.
Always more to learn.
Yeah.
I say, keep digging, keep asking questions, and see where it leads you. You never know what you might find.